Charlie Geren has demonstrated that he's the biggest asset Texas Speaker Dade Phelan has in his effort to ensure that Democrats not only have a seat at the legislative table this session, but also get to be put in charge of almost half of the committees. It's time for some straight talk, Texas. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is the Bunker Bob Show. Greetings, thrill seekers, music lovers, conversationalists from across the fruited plains of the great state of Texas. I am your host, Bunker Bob Steinhagen, bringing you an hour of unfiltered, unadulterated, and unapologetic conservatism to help make Texas and America great again. And I'm grateful to have you watching today on the Bunker Cam, via Rumble, YouTube, or Facebook. And welcome my podcast listeners who are out there walking, driving in their cars, or wherever they're listening via Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, or Podcast Addict. Great to have you here because today, Friday, is, of course, the 50th March for Life in our nation's capital, something that we should all be excited about, and knowing that there are millions of people literally in Washington, D.C. today for the sole purpose of sharing their heart for life. That life, where there is life, there is hope, and that is always, always a good thing. Now, I want to go back here to, we're gonna revisit something that we've been talking about, that I've been talking about for the past week and a half. And that, of course, is our Texas legislature. And I want to highlight an article written by Brandon Waltons in the Texas Scorecard. He writes that with the legislative session now underway, the Republican Party of Texas is taking their fight to prevent Democrat lawmakers from being placed in powerful leadership positions to a new level, airing a radio ad in House Speaker Dade Phelan's district that encourages his constituents to urge him to not only appoint Republicans as committee chairs, but to not allow Democrats to. Now, in a tweet, Matt Rinaldi, the chairman of the Texas State House of, the Texas Republican Party, posted this comment last week. He said, Dade Phelan ruled that he alone has the power to determine whether to give Dems powerful House leadership positions. Today, the Texas GOP went on the air in his district urging voters to tell him no Democrat chairs. We defeated Dems in November. We shouldn't put them in power now. Here is that ad.
Democrats tried to turn Texas blue, but Texas voters told them no. We voted Republican all the way down the ticket. But House Speaker Dade Phelan thinks Democrats should still run the show. That's why he's planning to put Democrats in charge of nearly half the committees in the Texas House. That's right. Dade Phelan is teaming up with Democrats to kill our Republican priorities. This has to stop. Call Dade Phelan today. Tell him to be a Republican. Tell him to stop empowering Democrats. Tell him to listen to the 85% of voters who support banning Democrat chairmanships. Now is the time to fight for Texas. Call Dade Phelan today, 512-463-1000. That's 512-463-1000. Political advertising paid for by the Republican Party of Texas.
Now, if you have any doubt whether or not Matt Rinaldi is a strong, principled leader of our party, that should remove all doubt. By the way, folks, in case you're not aware, Dade Phelan is a Republican. That's right, a Republican. Now, one of the things that this is the first time you've ever seen something like this happen, where the state party of Texas has literally stood against its Speaker of the House. And the reason why is because in a referendum election just, I think, last year, 81% of Republican voters in Texas were asked that very question: should Democrats be allowed to be on to chair House legislative committees, or should they be banned? 81% of Texas Republicans support a ban on Democrat chairs. And as I've reported time and again, last June, we Republicans, the Republican Texas Republicans, gathered in Houston, Texas for our state convention, and where we put together our party platform. And from that platform, from all the planks, from the hundreds of planks, issues that define what it means to be a Republican, 18 or 19 of them were selected by the Legislative Priorities Committee to go before the delegates for a vote. And the top 8 of those legislative priorities that got the most votes would become the legislative priorities for the state, for the Republican Party of Texas in the next legislative session. The fifth most important thing to Republican voters is to ban Democrat chairs. But House Speaker Dade Phelan, who is a Republican from Beaumont, which is the Steinhagen name is well known in Beaumont, ironically, and sadly so, I will say. Dade Phelan has been a staunch advocate for putting Democrats in charge, with nearly 40% of House committees chaired by Democrats last session. Now, despite that, Phelan was reelected last week by every Democrat in the chamber and all but 3 Republicans. Now, how is that possible? Because many people, we all watched what happened in Washington as Kevin McCarthy went through vote after vote, again and again, 15 votes before he was elected as Speaker of the House. And never once in any of those votes did a Democrat cross the aisle and vote for Kevin McCarthy. Never did they do that. So why are Texas Democrats doing it? Well, it's very simple. It's very simple, and it's very simple to understand why only 3 Republicans voted against him. Tony Tinderholt and Bryan Slaton were 2 of those. Tony Tinderholt was running against Phelan for House Speaker. But see, there were bills filed that were assigned to that committee that never saw the light of day because we had a Democrat chairing the important. You know what? I'm guessing that for most Republicans, right, education isn't that important. What the heck do we care about education? I'm guessing that must be the case because Dade Phelan got reelected to public office. He got reelected in the House. The people of Beaumont, the people who put him in office, they don't care about education. Clearly. They love Democrats, even though Phelan calls himself a Republican. Don't know why. But if you're going to put individuals in the positions of power who have nothing in common with you, there really is something wrong, don't you think? Now, let's think about this, folks. The reason that you are a Republican, that I am a Republican, is because I believe that Republicans have answers that Democrats don't. I believe that Republicans, that a government can run so much better under a Republican-led and Republican-run government than a Democrat-run government. Don't believe me? Just look at the last 2 years under Joe Biden. How's that working for us, folks? It isn't. And so, Dade Phelan says he's going to continue to honor. This is a guy who claims to be a man of honor, to honor his pledge to Democrats who made sure that he became Speaker. Look, if you here so when Dade Phelan comes to each member of the House, Republican House, each Republican member of the House, I should say, he's got this sheet of paper and he says, here are all the Democrats who are supporting me, and here are all the Republicans who have pledged to support me as well. Now, as you can see, I've already won. Now, you have a choice. You can become a full-throated supporter of me. You can bend over. You can spread them. And you will thank me as I insert myself into your cavity, if you will, because I am your daddy. That's what Dade Phelan basically tells members of the Republican caucus in the state of Texas. You play ball with me and you support me and you kiss my rear end. You praise me, Kim Jong-un style. I want to see smiles. I want to see clapping as I want to see that stupid clap that the Korean people do. They put like little children. Oh yes, and that's exactly what happened. Dade Phelan walks in and the Republicans gush over themselves. Oh, there's Master Phelan. There's Master Phelan. There's the master of the house. And that is exactly what he is. You can either play ball, and if you don't play ball, if you vote for someone else, I don't know who you might vote for, but if you voted for someone else, folks, I'm going to tell you, you will be on the dog catcher committee. You will be on a committee that is so boring, that you have no expertise in, that you have no reason to be on. And then you've got to go back to the people of your district and explain that why you are on a do-nothing, know-nothing, irrelevant House committee. You'll get no favors. You'll get no plum positions. You won't be able to chair this committee or this event or that event. You will be banished. Don't believe me? Folks, this is the way Texas politics works. And so that's why you see just 3 Republicans who say no to Phelan. Just 3. Now, of course, as I said, the Republican Party had its 5th legislative priority was to ban Democrat committee chairs. Well, there's a problem. And Phelan had a bit of a problem because Matt Rinaldi, the head of the Republican Party of Texas, and the Legislative Priority Committee, the Legislative Priority Committee, and activists all over the state of Texas had decided that they were going to caravan to the state capitol on Thursday. Now understand, what was Thursday? This is last Thursday we're talking about. What happens Thursday? Well, very simply, that's when the rules of the state house are established. It's been that way for the history of the House, except and there are exceptions to that. Now, those exceptions are sometimes it's later than Thursday. Sometimes it's a week later. Why? Because they're trying to work through the rules. You've got to understand, the rules establish everything. This is one of the most important things that the House does in preparation for the session. So it takes time, it takes effort. And so the Republicans had decided that Republican activists were going to do a march, if you will, on the state capitol and fill the gallery with Republicans wearing shirts that say, "Ban Democrat chairs." They were going to browbeat their members of the House and demand that they create a rule that ensures that Democrats will not be in those positions. So what happened? Well, Dade Phelan got elected on Tuesday. And immediately after he got elected, he sent out an agenda stating that the rules would be voted on Wednesday. Pretty ballsy move, frankly. Brilliant move, frankly. If you're a Democrat, that is a brilliant move. If you're a liberal, man, that is a great move. That's a truly heroic move for those who love big government, who love Democrats, who love the left. That's what that was. But it wasn't a Democrat that was making that decision. It was a Republican. A Republican made that decision. And how is that okay? How do you reconcile that? Well, Dade Phelan didn't want to have to face the rank and file, the activists, the people who work on the Republican campaigns that get members of the House and Senate elected. They go door to door, they lick envelopes, they give money because they want limited government. They want the platform, the Republican platform that we work so hard every year to put together, that we want it upheld. If you call yourself a Republican, this is what you should stand for. And if you don't stand for that, you should let voters know in the primary that you don't agree with this or that position. It's real simple. Of course, none of them do it. But the ideals of the Republican Party of Texas, of those who work hard to each and every day to bring good government to Texas, this is how they're treated. So, needless to say, on Wednesday there was a smattering of a few Republicans who were wearing the Ban Democrat chair shirts. I'll show you a video, an image of it in a minute, of that in a few moments. But so what happened is, Dade Phelan decided that he was going to take that matter up. Well, Bryan Slaton, as you know, Bryan Slaton, one of our true heroes in the House. Bryan Slaton, his placard is on my wall. I keep highlighting that. Why? Because he's one of our true conservatives. Just like Bob Hall is one of our true conservatives. I see I've got something in the way of the camera, but that's okay. But that's the key, is that Bryan Slaton and Tony Tinderholt from the Woodlands, the two of them decided that they were going to make an effort to make sure that the legislative priority was approved. But then they didn't count on Charlie Geren. You see, when Tinderholt and Slaton attempted to change the rules of the House to prevent the minority party from chairing committees, Phelan blocked the vote from happening via parliamentary rulings. But he had to have a a stooge. He had to have someone with absolutely no moral compass who was willing to do his bidding, his lapdog, and that is Charlie Geren. Charlie Geren is, by the way, he is not a Democrat. Charlie Geren is a Republican, a 22-year incumbent. What else do we know about Charlie Geren? Well, Charlie Geren has an interesting past, especially to get into office. This is the next image that, if for those watching on the bunker cam, is David T. Sorensen. This is a field director from his 2016 re-election campaign for Charlie Geren. And this guy decides to, and of course, we've got to make sure that we say that Charlie Geren had no idea what he was doing. This was shocking to me. This action that they were taking. Here is how the story goes. This is in 2016, and on the final day of early voting in 2016, Sorensen overheard a conversation involving Beau French talking about his children. Now, Beau French is the individual who dared challenge Charlie Geren in the race. Beau French is a partner in the Chris Kyle Foundation. He was one of the founding partners of the Chris Kyle Foundation. This is a guy who knew Chris Kyle. He was a Navy SEAL, and they worked together. He and Chris Kyle worked together. It was a business that he and Chris Kyle had created, not the Chris Kyle Foundation. I need to correct that. He and Chris Kyle worked together after they were out of the service. So Beau is for lack of a better word, well, there is no better word for an individual who serves their country honorably, but he is a bit of a hero. We'll see. Sorensen thought he heard that French's 3-year-old son had suffered broken ribs while wrestling with his older brother. He thought he heard that the family took the boy to a chiropractor for treatment. In his mind, according to his deposition, see, that's the picture. If you're watching on the bunker cam, that's his deposition picture, taken later in a lawsuit filed by French. Sorensen thought that represented harmful neglect, so he filed an anonymous report of child abuse with Child Protective Services. That night, while French and his wife were at a political fundraiser, Child Protective Services and Westover Hill Police visited the family residence to check on the children's welfare. Now, what actually happened? Well, his 3-year-old son, and this is reported in the Texas Scorecard by Dave Lieber. He said what actually happened is that his 3-year-old son had a rib out of alignment, possibly from jumping on a trampoline. The family chiropractor fixed him up. That was it. And so what Dave Geren did was weaponize the CPS. In his deposition in the French lawsuit, French's lawyer, Christopher Catreville, put it succinctly to Sorensen, the article reads, "You weaponized CPS. Did you think that information could be used to gain a political advantage over Mr. French?" He asked Sorensen. "It wasn't about that," Sorensen replied. "What was it about?" the lawyer asked. "I was just worried about a kid." That's Dave Geren. Dave Geren, by the way, so French lost the race. You wonder why? Do you think that the rumor of this child abuse took hold? It sure did in that election. French lost that race. What child abuser wouldn't lose a race? And so French sued and won an apology. And Sorensen had to apologize. Now he didn't do it publicly. He wouldn't. It could basically it was, but it could be conveyed to other people, and that's how this reporter got it. And it says that Sorensen writes that he took vague remarks he heard, and I anonymously called Child Protective Services. He was under the mistaken impression, not true. There's no mistake about it. Sorensen's a creep. He is exactly the kind of person that Garen wants on his staff. Oh, by the way, was Sorensen fired from his job? Nope. I now know the report I provided to CPS was not accurate, said Sorensen. I acknowledge that I misunderstood and misconstrued what I overheard, and I apologize to the French family. I'm not aware, he goes on, of any instance in which any of the French children have been subjected to abuse or neglect. I now have no reason to question that Mr. and Mrs. French are anything other than caring and capable parents. I regret providing an inaccurate anonymous tip. Yeah. Whatever. He got his Garen 1, and of course, Garen said he didn't know anything about it. I didn't know a thing about it. This wasn't me. This wasn't my campaign. Well, why didn't you fire the guy? This is during the campaign, but he didn't do that. Now, True Texas Project CEO Julie McCarthy wasn't impressed with Garen's response. Now, his response, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at something else. This is actually something I'm going to be talking about in a minute. But I want to highlight the fact that this is the kind of person Charlie Garen is. He does the work and the bidding of Dade Phelan. And he is a stooge for Dade Phelan. Now, when I say he's a stooge for Dade Phelan, now, of course, many people will say, well, wait a minute, he's a conservative Republican. Phelan's a conservative Republican, and Garen's a conservative Republican. Really? Well, let's look at the actual facts. This from the Texas House Journal and Mark P. Jones. This is where the Texas House Republicans rank from the most to the least conservative. There's 82 Republicans in the 150-member Texas House were scored based on their votes in the 2021 legislative session and ranked from most to least conservative. Now, as Speaker, House Speaker Republican Dade Phelan doesn't normally vote and is not included in the analysis. As you can see on the chart, if you're watching on the bunker cam, or I'll just explain that a higher score indicates a more conservative ranking based on a legislature's vote during the regular session. There's 82 Republicans. Let's try and see if we can find Charlie Garen. Let's just keep going down the list. And I still don't see him. He's somewhere. Oh, there he is. He ranks 78th out of 82. Charlie Garen is no conservative. But remember, folks, he is the stooge of who? Of Dade Phelan. He does Dade Phelan's bidding. So when you hear that Dade Phelan is a conservative, really? Every time Bryan Slaton got up, or Tony Tinderholt, Bryan Slaton did most of the effort. Every time he got up to make a rule proposal, Charlie Garen got up and stopped him. Bryan Slaton didn't even get a chance to read his proposed motion before Charlie Garen stood up and said, it's out of order. Mr. Chairman, I call this the motion out of order. This isn't a Democrat doing it. Now remember, this is all about every time Slaton tried to create something or push forward a rule, a motion, it was called out of order. Now, what are the rules that he's asking? One of the rules stated that if you're going to chair a committee, you have to sign a form, or you have to write, and it has to be turned into the House Speaker's office that you do not believe in Marxism, that Marxism is not Texas value. You oppose Marxism. Charlie Geren said that was out of order. These are the kinds of things when Bryan Slaton said we will not allow Democrats, or excuse me, the majority party has a right and shall chair all committees. Charlie Geren called it out of order. Dade Phelan agreed with his motion of being out of order and called the motion so. Every time Slaton took the microphone, every time Charlie Geren said it was out of order. This is a little parliamentary trick. And even though they were not out of order, even though they were germane, even though they were right, he never allowed it. At one point, Tony Tinderholt had appealed the ruling of the chair, tried to appeal the ruling of the chair. He yelled, "I appeal the ruling of the chair." He wasn't at a mic. He tried to get to the mic. They would not turn the mic on. Now, appealing the ruling of the chair, this is for those of you who don't know much about what Robert's Rules of Order, but appealing the ruling of the chair simply means that I appeal, the chair has ruled that this motion is out of order. The chair, appealing the ruling of the chair, you have to have 10 members who agree with appealing the ruling of the chair so that the body can then vote whether or not that is truly out of order. And Dade Phelan never recognized Tony Tinderholt for his appeal of the ruling of the chair. So it never got a vote. Tony Tinderholt had 10 members who signed the appeal of the ruling of the chair, who agreed that it was and what they're agreeing to is not that it is not out of order. They're agreeing to say, yes, let's bring it to the floor so that the members can vote whether or not it is truly out of order. Phelan refused to do that. Now, this is what they were trying to avoid. And if you saw this is on Wednesday. And you see Andy Hopper, who ran against Lynn Stuckey in Texas 64th, and then there's Dennis London, who ran against Justin Holland in the 33rd. Those are two individuals who are activists in the Republican Party, and they're there. And those are the shirts, ban Democrat chairs. There was just a handful of Republicans present on Wednesday when they took these votes. And that was on purpose because Dade Phelan did not want to have to face, the people, the activists from the state of Texas. And Charlie Geren made sure that happened. Now, just so you know, Thursday did come, and many of the activists didn't come. They just said it's all for naught, but many of them did. In fact, they filled the gallery. And this is what greeted them, or when Bryan Slaton came to the gallery on Thursday during a kind of a lag in they were waiting on some things and nothing was going on, so he went up to the gallery. And when he went up to the gallery, and I've told this story on the last show, but as I was working on show prep, the feed that I get from the legislature, from the House, is turned off. So every time, if there's something going on, they turn the mics on. If there's nothing going on, they turn the mics off. Well, I heard just a roar, basically, and I looked up at the monitor and I saw that everyone was standing and cheering. and I couldn't figure out what was it. I couldn't see because of the angle of the video that I was watching. I couldn't hear any, but I could hear. I actually heard there must have been some mic in the distance that was on. It could have been from the other from outside of the chamber. That's how loud it was. But they just kept cheering. It was a standing ovation. They kept clapping and clapping and clapping. And Dennis London, who is pictured there, took out his phone finally after I think it was at least 1 or 2 minutes, at 3 maybe 4. He took out his phone to capture what was going on, and as I was watching it, I finally saw Bryan Slaton come into the frame and shaking people's hands. The one individual who, along with Tony Tinderholt, the two were trying to honor what they were saying. Now watch this. This is the video that Dennis sent me. And this, there it is.
Bryan Slaton getting a standing ovation in the gallery.
Said Bryan Slaton got a standing ovation. Look at all the red shirts that read "Ban Democrat Chairs." It's already too late, because no rule has been put in place to do that. But that's what they experienced. That's what Bryan Slaton experienced. That's what happens when you do the right thing. Bryan Slaton, by the way, will be on Dog Catcher Committee. He will be on a committee that has no impact whatsoever, because Dade Phelan, he is a vengeful man. And so that is what he does. And thanks to people like Charlie Geren. So Charlie Garen there was a gentleman named there was a gentleman named Alex Stringer, who was a comedian, who basically played a little role, decided that he would play the role, and he does this apparently. This is kind of his shtick. He goes in and he plays kind of what Stephen Colbert used to be on the Daily News, or the show that he was on that escapes me. But he used to be the Colbert would play the conservative, the ultra conservative Stephen Colbert when he was a flaming liberal. Well, this is just the opposite. What Alex Stringer does is he will play the liberal, the ultra liberal. And here is Alex Stringer going to see Charlie Geren. Watch this. This is good.
Morning.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Do you know if Representative Garen is in his office?
Let me check.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Thank you. Hi, Charlie.
How are you?
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you yesterday for standing up to those crazy MAGA Republicans with the whole no Dem chair stuff. I really appreciate that.
I don't know that I should.
Well, with the point of order on the no Dem chairs,
the amendment was poorly drafted and didn't reflect the housekeeping resolution that was just passed.
Well,
obviously he's not read it.
Yeah.
Read what it just passed.
Of course, but either way, I appreciate it because I have a trans kid, and my 5-year-old son is in the process of transitioning, and I knew that my son Carl was a female when he went to his cousin's tea party, and he was having such a good time at the tea party. And right when we came home, we called doctors and we decided we're going to start transitioning him right away. And all these crazy MAGA hat wearing QAnon Republicans, they're trying to stop my son from transitioning into the beautiful daughter that I know she is. And I just want to say thank you. Well, honestly,
all I can say is that between you and your son and the Lord, I'm not wandering off into that. What I did yesterday was about how the House runs and how legislation moves through the House. It didn't have anything to do with transgenders. It didn't have anything to do with anything else other than what was right for the House.
Of course, but we have good Republicans like you and Dade Phelan, and if we get a Democrat on the Education Committee, my son Carl is going to become the beautiful daughter that I know that she is, and I can't wait to change her name to Carla. And you know, having good conservatives and good Republicans like you, you're going to allow my child to transition. And I just want to say that I really appreciate that, and thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time to come here, but yesterday was nothing about transgender. It was about how the House runs and how legislation moves through the House. And
well, either way, Charlie.
Well, I'm here about what the House needs to be doing, about how legislation moves. And as you probably know, I was chair of House Administration for many terms. And so the orderly process that the Texas House needs to run under is very important to me. And that's what yesterday was about.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. And I think that doing what you did is just going to help my child in their journey transitioning. So I just want to say thank you. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks
Have
for
a great
coming
day.
by.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's Charlie Geren. He believes that a transitioning child, that cutting the penis off a 5-year-old boy is between a parent, the Lord, and the child. That's Charlie Geren. Those of you who live in Fort Worth, Texas, who voted for him again and voted for him again. French, by the way, ran against Garen in 2018 and lost again. And Garen saw no Republican challengers in the last 2 election cycles. I wonder why. It is impossible, frankly, nowadays to find true conservatives who are willing to run for office because they're going to be facing what the left has become so good at, and that is framing a message and destroying a person, destroying the person, trying to impugn a person's character. French was accused of child abuse. That's how disgraceful Charlie Geren is. Of course, Mr. Garen, he's all about the rules. Well, I don't know anything about that, but that's between you, your son, and the Lord. Really? What church does that guy go to? I'm just curious. As a follower of Christ, I'm very interested to know how you don't see chopping off the reproductive organs of a child is anything but child abuse. How is that okay? But that's what Charlie Geren is. Now, I was starting to read this response earlier, and this is what it was dealing with. This is True Texas Project CEO Julie McCarthy wasn't impressed with Garen's report when she saw this video. She says, Charlie Geren knows very well that any legislation to ban kids from sex change procedures faces an uphill battle in the GOP-dominated Texas legislature. He can't even look a man in the face and tell him that he shouldn't butcher his son. Look at him squirm. It's between you and the Lord. Really? Child abuse is a private matter? Which is an odd thing to say considering Garen unfairly seated the CPS on his political opponent. Charlie is fully aware that his actions yesterday will give power to Democrats, and he's too weak to admit it. As the culture slides farther left, it's obvious that Charlie and his ilk are out of touch, irrelevant, and not fit to lead. Amen, amen, and amen. Gosh, I wish we had more men like Julie McCarthy, the CEO of the True Texas Project, don't you? If Julie McCarthy can tell that this was wrong, I think most people can too. And that's exactly why Bryan Slaton and Tony Tinderhold worked so hard to try and create a rule that would prevent the Speaker of the House from appointing anyone who is a Democrat. But he has the sole right and sole power to do so. And he's made clear that he is going to do it. He by the way, he has an obligation to the Democrats because he made the promise. You know, Dade Phelan, he's a man of honor. He's got to honor his promises. That's how he's going to paint this. They're also going to say, and they have been saying, that I've got a report about that from where Dade Phelan is basically saying that we don't want to be like Washington, D.C. And so Dade Phelan's argument with Charlie Geren. Charlie Geren, remember, the fourth most liberal member of the Republican caucus in the State House of Representatives here in Texas. Charlie Geren and Dade Phelan, these two guys, they believe that there is nothing wrong with Democrats. That Democrats, you see, they don't believe in the Republican Party. They don't believe in Republican values. They don't believe in the Republican platform. That's why they believe that Democrats have their views are as valuable. Let me restate that. Their views are more valuable than Republicans. Despite the fact that Republicans, and despite the fact that there's no other state in the union, no other state that has where the majority party cedes power to the minority party. No other state does that. Texas does. And supposedly that makes us better. Now, this is maybe splitting hairs a little bit, but which legislature is doing a better job, in your opinion, when it comes to running government? Is it Florida or Texas? And which one has is producing a better education for children? Is it Florida or Texas? I would say it's Florida. Why? Because they don't allow Democrats to chair committees. They don't give absolute power to Democrats. And which is exactly what happens here in Texas. Now, before you send me email about, Texas education is second to none, you need to get a life and realize Texas education is not that great. Getting an education, there are some schools that do a great job, but in aggregate, the schools public schools in general, all over the United States, and especially and in Texas, are not teaching children, are not teaching kids. They're indoctrinating them in some ways. We continue to kind of go down the slippery slope of wokeism, and we kind of cede power and try and become all things to all men. And what we end up doing is bastardizing what republicanism means, what it means to be a Republican. Whenever I hear someone say, well, I'm not a Republican, I'm a conservative. Well, then define conservative. And then look at the Republican Party platform, as I have been, and I'm going through the platforms, and I'm comparing the Green, Democrat, Libertarian, and Republican platforms. I'm comparing all four of them on the state and national level. And as I go through that process, because I'm focusing on different topics of that, explain to me how the Texas Republican platform could be any more conservative. The answer is it can't. Well, I guess it could be, but if you're going to call yourself a conservative, why would you say, no, I'm not going to call myself a Republican? If the platform says what it says. And I suspect the reason why you're going to say, I'm not going to call myself a Republican, because you have people like Charlie Geren and Dade Phelan who are running our House of Representatives. These career politicians, 22 years Garen's been in office, 22 years. And by the way, just to make sure you're aware, Garen he's going to continue to get reelected, because the people of Fort Worth, they don't care. People of Fort Worth, the voters, Republican voters in Fort Worth, they don't care. And neither does Charlie Geren. You see, Garen has he's passed the term. I think you have to be in office. I think six years, or no, excuse me. It's you have to be in office for 4 terms. Once you're in office for 4 terms as a state house member, you are now eligible for a pension. So when you retire, quote unquote retire, when you leave the state house, you then receive a pension from the taxpayers. Taxpayers give you a pension. And how much is that pension? The pension for a member of the House and Senate is equal to that of your Texas of a Texas state judge. So it should come as no surprise that every year on the agenda, there is one position that is always gets a pay raise, and it's Texas state judges. Big surprise there. Garen has, folks, you're never going to get rid of Garen. You're going to be paying him for the rest of his life. You know, I think that members of the House, I think they get about $7,500 a year. That's how much they earn, and they love, your incumbents love to tell you, yeah, I'm getting $7,500 a year, and that's what they'll tell you because I'm serving the people. Garen says that all the time. He loves to tell people that. He doesn't want them to know that he's got a pension that he's set, puts him up for the rest of his life, that takes care of him for the rest of his life. He has nothing to worry about. He doesn't give a darn. He doesn't give a hoot about the state of Texas. He doesn't care about children. If he did, then first of all, he would not be saying, well, if you want to take your kid's reproductive organs away and cut them off, that's between you, the child, and the Lord. Now, a reasonable person would go, what the hell are you talking about? A 5-year-old? You're going to transition a 5-year-old? Are you nuts? Are you crazy? Well, just a little background going on right now in the House. There is a little bit of a fight going on for the House between the House and Senate, and it's actually it's Dan Patrick, our lieutenant governor, and a member of the House of Representatives are kind of going at it, and it's basically Steve Toth, and the issue is that this is from the Texas Scorecard. Brandon Walters writes that after being accused by a Republican lawmaker of helping kill legislation to end child gender mutilation, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is fighting back against the allegation, calling them irrational and blatantly false. A recent audio recording from the Texas Capitol released by North Texas activist Dave Lowe caught State Representative Steve Toth of the Woodlands placing blame on Patrick and the Texas Senate for being part of the reason why legislation was killed in 2021. He said it came over from the Senate ridiculously late, and they know that they were going to have trouble, said Toth. There's plenty of blame that needs to be spread around in this thing. Republican Party of Texas Chairman Matt Rinaldi immediately denounced the comments as false. Patrick passed the stronger child protection bill early in the session, Rinaldi told Texas Scorecard. When the House made it clear it would only pass the weaker bill, he sent that one over too. Dan Patrick did everything we asked for in this priority. It died in the House. Now Patrick is pushing back. Now, the bill that they're talking about is a gender mutilation bill. And this that did not pass. And it is the fourth of 8 legislative priorities that the Republicans have prioritized for this legislative session to ban gender mutilation of children. And so that is the fight, and who is to blame? Why it didn't get passed last time is in question. Well, one of the reasons why it didn't get passed in the last legislative session is because of Charlie Geren and Dade Phelan and the tricks that they played on the people of Texas. Folks, it is going to be an interesting session for sure. And I'm going to be keeping a strong eye on what happens, and we'll have different members of the legislature. I'm sure Bryan Slaton will be in from time to time, and as well Bob Hall, Senator Bob Hall, our our flagship conservatives in both the House and Senate. So you can look forward to that, and that will certainly be coming up in the near future. And I appreciate you being with me today and hanging with me. I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you have a great weekend, because it looks like it's going to be a good one, and I hope that you and your family will be blessed. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.